Well, here's some good news. We got the pheasant back. So yesterday I walked up into the pheasant tree and I spied that little pheasant down this corridor. So I snuck around the back, Sard came up the front, and what we ended up doing, we were going to try and catch it, and then we thought, it's going to fly off, it's too flighty. So what we ended up doing is we opened the door to this aviary where Mr. Silver Pheasant lives, and we just walked it straight in. And it worked like a complete charm. And now we moved the other Lady Amherst in here as well, because this aviary, when you come through that door, they can run down here. You've got more safeguards. The other holding pen where we're keeping them, you open the door, they could just fly straight out, which is exactly what it did. And we have learned two things from this. The first is, if your pheasant escapes, don't chase it. Because that's exactly what we did when the golden pheasant came out. She flew into exactly the same pile, and we tried to flush her out and catch her, and that scared her, and she obviously disappeared. Because we didn't try and catch this one, I think it stayed around. The other thing we learned is probably that we managed to catch that pheasant because it was a chick. Layla, the golden pheasant, was an adult, and she just went. She didn't make a sound. This chick, it was around for a couple of days after we lost it, and I could hear it calling back and forth to the other chick. So I think because they were chicks, they wanted to hang out together. They weren't adults ready for the world. That's partly what drew it back and kept it in the area. But that's awesome because we've managed to keep that Lady Amherst, and now we have our Lady Amherst pair again. So yeah, good news. So one autumnal job I have to get done is I need to plant these spinach. Now these spinach were supposed to go in ages ago, but it has been so dry here, I just knew as soon as I put these tiny little plants in the ground, they would shrivel up and die. However, we have rain this week, so it's go time. And the first thing I need to do is strip out all of the old stuff in the beds that has basically been food for the chickens. There are some nice leaves on these, but to be honest, the time it would take me to pick them off individually is pointless. So I might as well make good use of these, feed them to the animals, and put new plants in. As I'm weeding, I find that a pair of succotaurs are really good. If you've got a weed like that, they just come out by the roots. If you've got something more stubborn like a thistle that's down here, you can just use your succotaurs to cut through the root and take it out. Right, the bed is cleaned out, so step 2 is to refresh the bed. Now, as many of you know, underneath here is the no-dig method, so there's cardboard and then there's a ton of mushroom compost. Now, if I was putting in a heavy feeder in here, I might be tempted to take this off, refresh the entire bed with compost and then put it back on. However, we've only had a few spinach crops growing in a few of these holes, so I'm not going to bother taking the entire strip off. Instead, I'm going to get some compost and I'm just going to fill in the holes, because obviously where we've pulled things out, where we've pulled plants out, there's holes in the ground, and we'll just need to refresh it a little bit. So that's number 2, step number 2. Now there's a few plants still in because I did reseed it, but then it was dry and so nothing grew, but a few plants have grown. Now the best way I find to do this method and fill in these holes is just to get a pot of compost, tip it on, and then use a brush to brush it in. And then these little seedlings have been sat in water, so they're nice and hydrated, but I just want to get some water into these holes. So I'll quickly give that a water and then we'll start planting. Now I sowed a ridiculous amount of seeds because I think the packet I've got has 10,000 spinach seeds in it. So we won't be using all of these, but what we will do is we'll just flip it. There's a nice root ball there. And then rather than individually plant these, we'll just break off little clumps and pop them into the holes. Well, it has begun to rain, and as you know, I love that, but the camera does not. So we will continue in a little while. Well, the rain didn't stop, and it's the next day, and it's October. Can you believe it? It's October already, and after all that chat about the lack of rain, look at this. Can you see that? Rain, 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 rain. I mean, I don't mind because it waters everything, but I could do without the wind because that's going to be flattening my flowers. Well, there has been a respite in the rain, so this is what I sowed yesterday. So I've got some lettuces here. These are obviously these are a summer lettuce. They won't last the winter. So this will be the last strip that I'll be harvesting for the stand. We've put the spinach all along this row, which is good, everything in, and we saved some. So this is what we've saved. And I do recommend always saving some, especially when you're planting out, because if your site is anything like mine, there are things that will come and kill your crops. So I like to have some backups. Now with these lettuces, with these spinach, I may well, depending on the weather, you know, when we start to get frost and if there's snow forecast, I will probably put a tunnel over them just to safeguard them. Spinach is very good with the cold and it can get frosted and survive, and the leaves can freeze and then the sun will come out and they'll be fine. Heavy snow would kill them, so I will put a cover on them if needed. But at the moment, they should have maybe a month more of decent sunlight to keep them growing. Now overnight, Peaches, my new rescued goat, has tried to kill herself. Luckily, we had a pig ark delivered yesterday, and I found Peaches this morning, and she had somehow wedged herself halfway through the caravan, upside down in the rain. So I have moved her into here. Can you come out? Out, Jock. So she's now in the pig ark. She's eating, which is a good sign. She's really weak. I had to actually carry her, half carry, half drag her here because she couldn't stand up. Now she's standing up, which is a good sign. Now she has always been a bit of a diva goat, and when she feels ill, everybody knows, and she's really ill. That's going to disturb the camera, boy. I can't hear above you drinking. But when it comes to stress, don't underestimate the effect of stress on animals, especially prey animals, because they can die from it. So she's going to be on her own in here. Stop. Nobody can hear above you drinking. They can't. They can't. So I'm happy that she is eating. That's a very good sign. So I've got some haylage for her. I put down a little bit of straw because she'll want to bed down. She's got some nice nuts. Now you'll also notice that there is something wrong with her face, and she's not going to show us now because she's not going to lift her head. Are you going to lift your head? Or shall I move your ear? So under her chin, she has now what is called bottle jaw. Now bottle jaw is kind of this, there you go. You can see that bulge of fluid under her face. It's a high sign of a serious worm burden. She was wormed 2 days ago because she has always had issues with parasites. But I think it's more to do with the fact that she was basically on her side upside down, and so the fluid drained into her face. But if you ever see bottle jaw on your goats, you need to act really, really quickly because they're likely to have a high worm burden. I have done a Spinach test on her, and that's where you pull down the eyelids and you look at the amount of anemia in the eye, how pink it is. And she's not white. She's not really, really pink, but she's not white. So I don't think it's worms. I think it's where she's stuck upside down. She did also, where she's been trying to get up, she has drawn a lot of her hair off. So she's got these little patches. Honestly, Peaches, you trying to put me through trauma? So the plan now is to keep Peaches in the pig ark, segregated on her own until we can get her weight back up. She was, as you know, she was with the sheep. I was trying to build her up over there, but then the rams have got kind of a bit joisty with each other because it's near tupping season, and she hasn't quite bonded with the rest of the goats yet. In the day, the goats all run off and go across the field, and she just hangs out with me, which is fine. But at night, they're all together, and I think she needs some more strength before she can join them properly. So goats hate being on their own, but I think she's going to hate being with them feeling poorly more. So for now, the pig ark is a goat ark.